Tuesday, December 10th, 2013. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, 2 board games, Homesteaders and Tammany Hall.
Let's do this.
Had a pretty good party over the weekend out in Philly, playing some board games in the basement.
Usual party as it goes every year, so it shall continue.
Yep, but there's something about having a house that's big enough to where the basement was just people who actually wanted to play serious games. And then everybody else, so the drunk people were in like one part of the house getting super drunk, and the sort of people who didn't want to do anything or just wanted to play like Wii Bowling were in another part of the house, and then all the board gamers were in the basement.
Where they belong.
Yep. We had a lot of tables set up. Like, it was like a tiny convention. Like, if you just took those 3 tables and copy-pasted them a bunch of times, you'd have basically tabletop and MagFest.
I've seen conventions with tabletop rooms with equal or less table space to that basement.
In fact, the first Zenkai Con we went to was that.
Exactly.
Remember we were hanging out? We hung out in
that was one of the ones that came to mind.
We hung out in that one, basically, conference room with some tables, playing games with each other.
The library was also comparable.
Yup. Well, because Cold Guy brought basically every game that exists.
Right.
That was a good time. It's been a while since Scott doesn't come to our board game nights here anymore.
You people aren't playing too many serious games seriously, so...
You don't even know what games we play.
Doesn't even matter.
Uh-huh.
When you play Netrunner, everyone's serious, and you play a lot of games really fast. Every time.
I don't know. I'm off and on about Netrunner.
Do whatever you want.
So, hey, you got any gaming news?
Is there a gaming news? There is. Did you notice when you turned on your 3DS today that there was a little update going on?
Nope, because the Wi-Fi was off, because why would I have it on?
Why wouldn't you have it on?
Because the battery actually lasts longer if I turn it off.
Why isn't it plugged in? Over in your house?
Sometimes I forget, and I'm done with the candy boxes, so the wireless literally does nothing for me.
Well, it turns out there's an update today. The update does a few things. The first thing it does is you now have your Nintendo Network ID.
What?
Which is now, so the Wii U and 3DS accounts are the same account now, as it should be, as it should have been from the beginning.
All right, so they fixed a grievous flaw.
But the problem, they didn't completely fix it, but there's hope that they will. See, it's only a partial fix, because this account ID really is just sort of signs you in. I think it might also roll in your Club Nintendo account.
Which
right?
I don't have.
Which you don't have. It doesn't matter. But that's your account for like using the Miiverse, which they also added to the 3DS.
Wow, I really care about that.
No, you don't. You don't care about it at all.
Can't wait to Miiverse it up in the Miiverse.
Is basically just the official Nintendo forum, basically, and it's the most heavily moderated and useless forum.
Well, considering they basically turned off Swapnote because people were drawing dicks.
Right, well, this is just a heavily moderated forum where you can comment on games, and then it'll verify, like, this person has the game, this person doesn't.
Wait,
Spoilers.
But comment on the game via the 3DS?
Yes.
That's the worst.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the other day, I wanted to trade Pokemon.
You can also take screenshots of your games and then post them at 3D screenshots.
I guess I kind of ignored a lot of that because I play just single-player games now. I mean, no one will play multiplayer 3DS games with me ever.
Like which one?
I don't know, Mario Kart, Mario Tennis, Advance Wars, anything.
I'll play Mario Tennis.
Will you? Mario Kart's a better game. In fact, I'm actually kind of want to get rid of Mario Tennis because it's kind of a shit Mario Tennis.
No, do whatever you're going to do.
It's kind of baby's first Mario Tennis. They took a lot of the skill component out.
We already discussed that a long time ago.
I know, but it's just basically just a kind of boring Simon Says. At least Mario Kart has a little bit more going on.
Snaking.
This isn't really snaking.
Really?
But, so, I was playing Pokemon, wanted to trade some Pokemon.
And
that was when I discovered...
I want to play a game with a skill component, like Pokemon, where the only skill is patience.
No, that's a single-player game.
Uh-huh.
So...
Pokemon is a single-player game, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So, I wanted to trade some Pokemon, just for fun, and... I kind of remembered suddenly that you have to go into some deep part of your DS and set up all this stuff to make that be able to happen because of Nintendo's friend code stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo is on the road to ruin. The Wii U is not selling.
The Wii U is dead, but supposedly...
The 3DS is not really doing it for me as time goes on either.
The network ID and the friend codes might merge, and then hopefully by the time Smash Brothers comes out, things will not suck. They will have, and then you can also transfer with this Nintendo Network ID. You can transfer your shit from one 3DS to another.
I have a prediction. I think the Smash Brothers that comes out is going to be a big disappointment.
Maybe, but I think the 3DS one will do well.
That's the problem.
The Wii U one
the
will
history
do well
of the 3DS ports or 3DS versions of other games they've had that have been competitive have been reducing the skill cap in every step.
Oh, you think that
I think it's going to be ghetto Smash Brothers.
I think it's going to be ghetto Smash. It's very.
I mean,
good,
look,
could be.
The hardcore community won't go past the one from the GameCube.
I'm not going to say that's not possible.
I think it's likely.
That is somewhat likely. This could happen.
I don't trust Nintendo anymore. I think I bought fewer games for the 3DS than for any console I've ever owned except the Xbox.
You got to go for the games like the Phoenix Wrights and the Laytons. I think those are the games that are best.
Yeah, but
the
I
3DS.
played so many of those on the regular 3D or the regular non-3DS that more of them aren't actually fun.
Oh,
There's nothing new to explore.
I can play as many Phoenix Wrights as they make, as long as it's new people and whatnot.
Yeah, but I got kind of sick of them because the gameplay didn't really.
No, it's the same goddamn gameplay over and over. It's about seeing a different funny story and going lol.
But then I'd rather just play a straight up visual novel.
It is.
Then at least
Phoenix Wright is a visual novel.
No, but they don't
basically.
branch. They don't branch at all. It's just
true. It doesn't branch, but
in fact,
it's almost a visual
every
novel.
complaint I have about Phoenix Wright games after the first couple is the same as your complaints about most adventure games. Click on everything until you win.
Yeah, but the thing is, in Phoenix,
right? What?
The one difference in Phoenix Wright is an adventure game, right? It is click on everything until you win, but
yes.
In Phoenix Wright, unlike say a LucasArts adventure game, like say a Maniac Mansion, it's actually pretty common sense 90% of the time what to click on. It's not like
So it's even less of a game and more of just it's not even an idea game. It's just
It's click to continue the story.
Yeah.
Right.
I at least want a visual novel where click to date character A versus character B.
I'd rather present evidence to continue the story than have a random encounter in Final Fantasy to continue the story.
Yeah, no, not disagreeing there.
That's all I'm saying.
I got sick of Phoenix Wright games, and Layton games increasingly had the kinds of puzzles I don't give a shit about, and had fewer and fewer of the interesting interactive puzzles that were the whole point of the game.
I guess the Layton game story went up. I can't even, all the Layton games now sort of just blur together. I forget which one's which at this
I feel
point.
like as time goes on, there were more and more puzzles that were basically just algebra, and they weren't very interactive. They were just here's a bunch of stuff. What's the number that is the answer? And if I want that, I can just read a book and simultaneously read a book of puzzles.
You could watch the Layton plot on YouTube, but it won't be in 3D.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to watch on YouTube, though? The plot to that Adventure Time game. Because it's basically an Adventure Time episode hidden behind one of the shittiest games ever made and published on a cartridge.
Everyone is saying this game is so bad. I think that Adventure Time game, years from now, is going to be remembered as bad game, like the way Superman 64 is remembered as bad game.
The only thing that bothers me is that there are people who were surprised that it was a bad game. Guys,
why does it bother you?
We knew this was going to be a bad game.
Those are people who super like the other Adventure Time game.
I can't imagine a human being who isn't 5 who liked the previous Adventure Time game. The company that makes those games has either the worst game designers in the world or is a company of people who literally give zero fucks.
And supposedly Penn Ward approved and worked on these
Well, then
things.
Pendleton Ward has terrible taste in games. Or it's a Camp Krusty situation. The Krusty seal of quality. So this is not a news. This is just kind of a fun, interesting article, but it's a Totillo article, but it's good. I shouldn't say but. He's not that bad. So this is just memories of the original creation of Doom. Back in the early 90s.
A game that Totillo hadn't played until a few years ago?
Yep.
Yeah.
By John Romero and John Carmack. So it's John Romero and John Carmack talking about their memories in the early days of creating Doom.
Right. Except all that stuff is heavily documented. And if you're interested, you've already seen all that documentary of
Exactly. But I know that most of you jackasses haven't. And I know that most of the people who listen to Geeknights have probably never actually played Doom or Doom 2.
It's books about it.
I don't think...
What happened?
I don't think I understand that Doom had multiplayer FPSing.
Not Dune.
Doom.
Doom.
Doom had multiplayer FPSing in an era where such a thing was inconceivable.
It was the first ever multiplayer FPSing.
I mean, Wolfenstein was...
That I know of. Wolfenstein wasn't multiplayer.
Wolfenstein, by many definitions, isn't a first-person shooter.
No.
It was like a first-person mazer that had shooting.
Yeah, it's a maze game where you also had to kill guys. It was closer to like a D&D kind of gold box game with the first person walk around the dungeon, except you fought with real-time battles as opposed to the turn-based, and you could, you didn't just move one square at a time. You could just move freely.
But this is fun because it's got some good little quotes, and then it has basically an 8-year-old who reviewed Doom when it came out. Also, these pictures of John Romero and John Carmack are just what you'd expect. But anyway, things of the day. It's hard to have good video of this because of copyright problems. But while we were at this party in Philly at our friends Gojo and Laura's house, on the way home, we stopped to get... You're going to keep humming the Doom music poorly? Which Doom level are you even humming? What Doom level are you even humming? You kind of just went off into La La Land after the first verse. The first stanza.
No, I'm good.
Yeah, you're good?
I'm good.
So we were at this place eating some brunch before we get on the road, and suddenly this huge blizzard comes through. And meanwhile, on the TV in the sports bar, there's a football game. And the football game is not that far away because it's the Lions versus the Eagles. And that football game has the same blizzard going on. Nothing is better than football blizzard. Watch this clip. This is a play that has a problem, and the referee calling it out. You can't see shit.
There's a great article if you search for it. I don't know if I'll find the link for Thing of the Day posting. Maybe I will. About a guy who is a photographer at the game, right? And basically, when it's snowing like that, autofocus doesn't do shit.
Yup.
It just focuses on the snow. So you can't get no pictures, right? And basically all the guys there had like these gigantic lenses, right? The ones that you always see. They go up to 400. They zoom way the fuck in so you can get pictures of people all the way on the other side of the field, right? And basically those are worthless without autofocus. You're just fucked. So basically all what happened at the game is all those photographers switched to lenses that zoom less, right? And then they would just take shots of like people that were closer, and they wouldn't really get shots of people in the middle of the field. Yep. So this one photographer, he saw everyone else doing that, and he was like, So he kept his big-ass lens on, and he manual focused.
Damn, son.
And he's like, let's see if I can manual focus this shit. And it was a huge pain in the ass, but he got some pictures, and the pictures he got, basically no one else got. And they're pretty great.
So
also, fuck the Eagles. Fuck the Eagles.
In terms of this game, the beautiful thing about football is that unless like a bomb goes off or lightning starts striking, they play no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's something that esports really don't have. You don't have the adverse, like, they're going to play the game and then suddenly it starts raining.
Yeah, you don't have home field advantages unless it's like an international competition.
Yeah.
And they happen to be playing in one of the countries, right? And then you don't have any sort of like adverse conditions or anything like that.
And it's an aspect that other sports don't even have because they're pansies and they don't play if the weather's bad.
Yeah.
Looking at you, baseball.
I do think that's something if I made...
I would love to watch baseball in the snow.
That is something if I made sort of a Dota-like game or any sort of competitive game like that.
Weather?
Yeah, there would be a random condition that applies equally to all, right? That would just be on in the real mode, right? And that would simulate, the weather.
Yep, because yes, this adds some randomness, but at the same time...
It applies all equally. Everyone's in the snow.
It forces teams... For example, there could be a team that's really good at X and Y skill sets, but not so good at Z. But then suddenly, every now and then, there's the game where crazy wind or crazy snow doesn't let their basic strategies work, and now they're fucked. So it sort of forces teams to be able to adapt and to be able to take advantage of that. Kind of like bowling. Bowling, if all lanes were the same everywhere, like if they had a way to make lanes really uniform.
100% identical, same exact wood from the same exact tree.
Every professional bowler would bowl a perfect or near perfect game every time.
Yep.
But the real skill of bowling is figuring out what's up with the lane at the tournament right now and adapting to that.
Right, and most people aren't good enough at bowling to where the slight difference between lanes matters. When you're a pro, suddenly it matters.
So yeah, watch this clip and try to imagine being a ref at this game. Also, the clip will probably be taken down sometime soon by the NFL, so watch it soon.
Maybe. Is that your thing of the day?
Yeah, it's
You
my
wanna
thing
know
of the day.
All right, so my thing of the day. Apparently, it's other sports-related thing of the day.
Sports ball!
Sports ball. In fact, one of the sports I hate to watch, basketballs.
I'd
But
rather watch soccer than basketball.
I agree. And but basketball is probably a better sport. It's just even more boring to watch than a broken sport. Anyway, there is a university named Taylor University, and they have a tradition, and the tradition is Silent Night basketball game. And the way it works is they show up to the basketball game, and they're all crazy costumes, college, drunken frat boy, whatevers, right? But they're quiet because it's Silent Night, and they don't make any noise. Maybe some clapping, like nice, polite clapping. That's about it.
Like the kind of clapping you would see at early hockey games in the South before they understood hockey.
Yeah, all you hear is the squeaking of basketball shoes and the ref and maybe the players, right? And then as soon as their team scores the 10th point, everyone goes crazy, go nuts.
I think the operative
Double
term
crazy, go nuts.
is ape shit. They go ape shit.
Ape shit is correct. And then they do a whole bunch of other stuff too, like singing Silent Night towards the end of the game with what sounded like possibly modified lyrics. Not sure.
I couldn't 100%
Couldn't
tell.
really make them out in the video. But yeah, it's a tradition that's been going on for a long time, so it's easy to read a lot of articles about it. And also, there's YouTube videos of it going way back, but we'll probably just link to the newest one, and you can Google for more if you're interested.
It's pretty incredible. It's
good,
now,
good tradition, unique, get seal of approval.
Now, the reason I like hockey is that every goal is like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the meta moment, the book club book is
Aidaru by William Gibson. Some people have already told me they read it. I haven't even read one letter of it, but people said that
Captain.
they read it and liked it, and were like, "Yeah, awesome." So
I plowed a significant portion of the way through it and took an aside to read a bunch of old Lovecraft short stories that I hadn't actually ever read.
other listeners enjoy this book, so maybe you.
It's a good book. It's very cyberpunky.
Yeah,
That might be how I would describe it, as cyberpunk.
I'm in a cyberpunk mood.
Also, you know what? The topic that it's nominally about, virtual idols,
Super relevant.
yeah, kind of actually happening. Like, we're seeing this start to happen. Sharon Apple's coming.
She's named Hatsune Miku.
I know. She hasn't tried to take over our military-industrial complex yet.
That is not true.
Yeah, join our forum. Watch us on YouTube. We're going to be at MagFest. We're going to be on Bad Games.
MagFest is way, way soon.
Bad
As in,
Games.
listen to it. I'm going to work for 3 more days this week,
S.
5 more days next week. Then I am not going back to work until January 6th, I believe, which is the day after MagFest. Oh my God, MagFest is that soon. That is how soon it is.
So we're going to be there doing Bad Games, a longer version of what we already did at PAX. It's going to be longer and therefore badder. Scott's going to be on a panel of experts talking about game controllers. I'm going to be on a similar panel of experts talking about privacy in games. And Scott and I are both going to be gigantic assholes together on a panel about the future of games 10 and 30 years from now.
I may have to skip one or more of these if they schedule it parallel to the Machine
Scott,
Supremacy
you're turning
concert.
into Vic. Your convention fame's getting to you. You're going to be Vic.
There's only, I mean, this
You're
is
gonna be that
rare-
guy. You're gonna be that guest where the convention staff are running around like, "Where the fuck is Scott? I don't know. His panel's starting. Where is he? Who's his handler? I don't know.
This
He
is
wandered off."
It is rare that I would do such a thing, but this is a special circumstance, right? I've waited over 10 years
The band that
for this
PAX
one
couldn't even
band,
get.
right, to come from fucking Northern Europe. I don't know, they're from Norway, Sweden. I think they're Swedish.
You don't know anything about
They're
them.
definitely Swedish, right? I've waited over 10 years for them to come to the United States. They have come. Right?
Well,
As
they're not
long as
here yet.
Nothing happens in customs and they don't get deported or something. Right?
Don't laugh. That happened to a guest of Kineticon once.
That could definitely happen. That's
did
why I'm
happen.
worried about it happening. So if it doesn't happen, it's even more of a miracle, which is why I must go see them no
This
matter
guest
what.
doesn't go to any panels, and I look. It's like, oh yeah, he got denied at the border.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, MagFest is gonna be pretty awesome. And then there's a lull.
Yeah.
Geeknights will return. Geeknights may be
Will be
spotty.
cold.
We might be a little spotty until then, but then we'll return.
Also,
ski season is starting, so I may be at Hunter Mountain this weekend if any of you punk kids want to meet me there.
I think there's a
Saturday.
Netrunner tournament this weekend, Saturday at the Strat.
Well, I told Scott, if I don't go skiing, I'm gonna go play Netrunner.
You're actually going to go to the Netrunner tournament?
If I don't go skiing,
That'll be, you know, it costs $5, right?
what? That's basically zero.
I'm just saying, you might not want
I
to.
spent more than that on coffee today.
If you went to a Netrunner tournament in your current Netrunner game state, that would be hilarious.
The thing is, as bad as I am, would it possibly be a player of game situation? Like, would I at least beat all the scrubs?
If you actually,
Just by
if
being
you,
smart.
if you prepared some amount, you could possibly be like ahead of a few
So, like,
scrubs.
if I made a deck that wasn't bullshit and I actually knew what cards were in it.
Yes, and you maybe played 1 or 2 games with it beforehand.
Yeah.
And you picked a deck that was
Not hard to use.
not hard to use,
But
and
also not-
straightforward, but not completely ineffective. Like if you did like a standard fast advance and like something else simple, just like an Andromeda deck, you could probably do okay.
Yeah.
You would beat the scrubs, and then you basically what happened is you would get paired randomly in the first round. You'd probably lose both, and then you would, because you lost both, would go against a scrub, and you'd have a chance. And then if you beat them, you would play someone hard and lose again.
Dude, I entered a Magic tournament once, and I went into this thing. I was a reasonably good Magic player, but I just didn't give a fuck. I showed up with like a 200 card deck.
Yeah, the only Magic tournament I was ever in, my deck was not stupid, but I just lost because I played against a guy who was actually good in the first round.
I got to the quarterfinals with my 200 card deck.
But luckily, right, and that was so long ago that they were still doing single elimination and not Swiss. So I only got to play the one game, and that was it.
Yup.
So there you go.
Oh, Magic. My mom's trying to ship me all my Magic cards. I'm like, no, just sell them. No, don't ship them here. Bad
I have
news.
mine. Oh, you should go on all the places on the internet that we exist, like YouTube and Twitter, Facebooks, etc., Google Plus, and follow us on all the things, Tumblrs, whatnot.
Yeah.
Do that.
So, at this board game night, we played 2 awesome games with a bunch of awesome people. And in the spirit of us doing what we do, we're going to review them based on one playthrough.
One playthrough review. What game did you play, Rim?
I played a game called Homesteaders.
Is it about like wagons in Oklahoma?
It's
where the wind
basically
blows?
a mini version of the bidding of Amon-Ra,
Okay, so
Coupled-
the bidding for the territory.
coupled with the sort of Agricola Kayla's worker placement game.
So you bid for places to put workers?
So here's the deal. You have some workers. It's kind of hard to explain because it doesn't quite fit the way these games tend to work.
Well,
So
that's
first-
good. You don't want something that's just another one of
Exactly.
the same.
So what you do is there's 3 slots. Like say there's 4 players. You got 3 slots. And there's Amon-Ra style bidding between the 3 slots. But there's 4 players.
So someone's going to get fucked.
Whoever gets fucked
What's the booby prize?
passes and moves up the pass track, which gets you a thing.
Yeah, booby prize.
Sometimes you want the booby prize, but you don't want other people to get one of the slots for cheap. So you bid, hoping to be later outbid, and then someone else passes and you're fucked. You have to buy something that you didn't want, and then you go into debt.
I like that. Good. All right.
So it's got that going on. But what you buy is the right to buy. You basically get a property, like a space that you could buy a building for. But you have to pay the bid in cash, and you also have to pay the material cost of the building that you want to put on it. So you might bid on the slot that says,
And then you can't afford to put anything in?
yeah, and you're just fucked. Like you might bid on the spot that's like, only a residential building can go here, and then you can buy any of the residential buildings. And there's different kinds of buildings, and they all cost like copper or gold or food or iron or wood. There's a million kinds of resources. And you buy these things, build a machine, crank it, victory points, game's over in 10 rounds. How it's crooked slightly so is that you can have workers, and they cost money. You have to pay them wages. And you place workers on your own buildings to get work out of them, and every turn you reallocate your workers. You can just keep buying more workers if you want.
Okay.
There's no babby phase. You can just, if you can pay it for a worker and you can use some food to hire him, then you can just keep paying him. But with the workers and the trading in general, you can also trade goods freely. And there's a whole chart on 1 gold can turn into 1 copper or 1 cow and 1 victory point. You can trade at any time. At any time. In the middle of a phase, anytime you want, you can trade. But you need a trading chit for each transaction you wish to complete. Trading chits are 1 more commodity that you can get from buildings.
Can you trade trading chits?
No.
So I can't spend a trading chit to trade other trading chits.
Nope, but you could use a trading chit to turn a gold into a copper, then use the copper and a food on a trading chit that you use through something else to buy a building.
So every time you convert something, you need to use a trading chit.
Yes.
How do you get a trading chit?
It's another commodity you can get from like buildings and workers and stuff.
I got it. All right.
So like a building might give you...
You get it the same way you get a wood.
Yeah, a building might have a slot that says get a trading chit and 2 gold, and another slot that says get 2 victory points. Allocate workers as you see fit.
Mm-hmm.
The nice thing about this game is that at the very end, there's a final phase, so you don't have to worry about like, oh, I didn't finish my shit in time. After the last round of bidding, you have one more round of income, so you get everything that you paid for one last time, and then you can trade freely as long as you want, and then everyone scores. Still using trading chits. So the game doesn't have that sort of abrupt end where suddenly you're fucked that some games like that tend to have. It was actually moderately fun. I won pretty handily, but it was a pretty good game.
You won handily?
I did.
Okay.
But I feel like the problem with this game is that it's not terribly complex, and having played it once, it would take us maybe 4 or 5 playthroughs, and we would never need to play this game again. We would have it...
Because, I mean, just the thing where you can get as many workers as you want or as you can afford, that is like, it's so unlimiting.
No, because no one built fucking workers. You start with 2. I had 4 at the end. And everyone else had... One guy had a bunch of workers, but one guy had 3
Is
workers.
there just so much competition for the spaces that there's no reason to buy more because you're not going to get to put them?
You'll actually have more spaces than workers. It's just that not all the spaces are that worth it.
So it's like buying another worker is going to not have a good payout because he's going to go in a shitty space every time.
Yeah. Also, I think most of us were kind of new to the game, so a lot of people were taking suboptimal strategies to victory.
I mean, you know, even if this is a diminishing return, if you tell me I can get as many workers as I want right away in a worker placement game, I'm getting at least a second, third worker early.
Yep, I got a 3rd worker as soon as I possibly could.
There you go.
And
you won handily.
Also, the player who had the most experience and who taught us the game tried to do what I do when I'm playing against a bunch of noobs. But players have gamesed it. The other interesting thing is that you can go into infinite debt. You can just keep taking debt. You can take debt tokens anytime.
Like Age of Steam?
They get you 2 money immediately, and you have to pay back 5 money to get rid of them. But there's buildings that'll get rid of them too. You can take any number of them. The first one's worth -1 point at the end of the game. The second one is worth -2 points. The third one is worth -3. So if I have 3, that's -6 points.
Ooh.
So it builds up rapidly. However, I feel like people who win this game are going to have 2 of these things hanging around at the end of the game. It seems like that's the value
Otherwise, you won't have
proposition.
enough money to actually do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fun worker placement game, like Amun-Re or Agricola even. It'll have the fun sort of like build your machine component, but if you're smart, you'll figure out the most optimal machines, which it seems complex, but actually you can calculate your paths through the game pretty quickly. The game sort of doesn't fall into the trap that Ground Floor did, in that while you can have these crazy trade combinations, like I would calculate out, well, I'll trade a food on this trading chit to get a wood or to get a steel, and simultaneously I'll trade this gold for a victory point and a cow, but then I'll use the cow and 2 money and take 1 debt token and this other trade to make this thing happen. But other players can't really fuck you up. The only way they can fuck you up is if they outbid you. So like Amun-Re, if you're good at the game, the bidding is all that matters. Or Agricola, if you're good at the game, placement on other people's spots, preventing them from getting what they need, is all that matters. Because no one suboptimally manages the farm. The farm is perfectly optimized by every player. The bidding becomes the last bastion of skill. So, game's fun. It's a great game to have if you commonly run board game nights, because you can whip it out, teach it to smart people really quickly, and play the game it takes like an hour to play, unless someone doesn't take their turn. But despite all these crazy combinations of trades I could do, I could calculate them very quickly just by the nature of the chits limiting the number of trades you can do. It sort of cuts off that tree that you have to explore to figure out the optimal path really quickly. It sort of truncates the total amount of mental effort you could spend.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. It's a fun game.
All right. So the game I played was Tammany Hall.
Oh,
which
yeah,
is a
Boss
game,
Tweed.
Yeah, it's a game that I had heard about and kind of wanted to play just based on theme alone. I did not know anything about the game at all. The rule book had really tiny font, but it was only like a few pages, and I read it really quickly and understood all the rules with no help really quickly, and I'm pretty sure I didn't get anything wrong. And then I played the game, and I was very surprised at this game. The way it works is it's similar to El Grande, right? It's territory control, right? Or what's that actually called?
Colonel Blotto.
It's Colonel Blotto. You put guys into the different wards, districts of Manhattan, trying to win elections in the different, right? To get, I guess, seats in the city council or whatever it is. And then whoever's got the most is the mayor and whatnot. So,
all right, so a little bit of Blotto, a little bit of democracy.
So I'm reading all these rules, and really, I read all the rules, but all you do on most of your turns is you either, A, put 2 bosses onto the board. You can put them anywhere. You put them in the same place, 2 different places.
So caballeros, like in El Grande.
Exactly. You can put 2 guys anywhere you want, or you can put 1 guy. So no matter what, every turn you're putting at least 1 boss out. And take an immigrant from the boat, basically, and put them somewhere, right? So it's either 2 bosses or a boss and an immigrant. And there's 4 kinds of immigrants: Germans, English, Italians, and Irish.
So we can get some casual racism in there, too.
There's super racism, okay? So basically all the spaces also all already have 1 immigrant in them to begin with. There's also 1 space that's Tammany Hall that's worth like 1 bonus point. And there's the 4 first spaces have a bonus to them as well. So here's how it works. The game is in 4 terms of 4 years each. Each turn is a year. So you go around 4 times, right, for the 4 years.
Yep.
Then you have an election. Then you go 4 years, election, 4 years, election, 4 years, election, game over, high score wins. Okay?
All right.
So you put your bosses out. And really, in the first 4 years, you don't have any political favors to start with. At least not that I could tell. I looked all over the rule book. You start with no favors, which means all that really matters are bosses. And whoever has the most bosses in a space wins that space. And there's really nothing you can do about it. So that first 4 years is just putting bosses out, mostly, right? And it's like, think about it. Every space on the board starts empty. Right?
So it's that opening risk of I'm placing my guy here, I'm placing my guy here.
You put a guy, someone else puts a guy, right? And it's like, ooh, who's going to, it's like everyone is basically going to put 8 or fewer guys out, but between 4 and 8 guys on the board, right? And who's going to win each space? I don't know. Right? So that's actually kind of interesting. Just everyone can put at most 2 guys, see who wins each space, and if everyone's smart, I guess it should turn out relatively equally.
It should be 100% predictable, assuming everyone's smart.
It's rough because you could also put out an immigrant, right? Like if you have...
the immigrants.
All right, so here's how it works. You do the election, and you go in order. The order is written on the board. And if you win a spot, right? If I win an election in a spot, I got the most bosses. Every boss is kicked out except for one of my bosses. Every other even my other bosses are kicked out. Just cleaned house. If there's a tie, every boss is removed. No one wins that spot. Just clean it out. Right? So it's rough. Every time you win a spot, you get a victory point. Hooray. If you win Tammany Hall, 2 victory point. Yay. You keep going around in the order doing this. The first 2 spots on the board, if you win one of those, you get to put an immigrant on the board during the election, which is powerful. Then during the 3rd and 4th spots on the board, if you win those, you can take 1 political favor of any color of your choice. Now, the political favors are discs that are colors that match the immigrants. So what happens with those is if there's currently an election in a spot, let's say there's an election on Tammany Hall, right?
Yep.
And I got 2 bosses, you got 1 boss. There's an Irish immigrant there. That's the only immigrant that's there, which means only Irish favors will work. We do, right? Normally, it's just 2 to 1, I win, right? But what if you have an Irish favor? You can use that favor in a closed fist bid, right? Where you both reveal before the election how many favors we possess that could be used on this election in this district, right? Then we put out a closed fist with between 0 and the maximum number of favors we could use, and then reveal. And any favors we spend basically count as a vote, just like a boss counts as a vote.
Oh.
Even if you lose that election, you still spend any favors. You still called in your favors. You just didn't win, right? So anything you put in your fist is gone, totally gone. All right. Then whoever.
You know what game does that too? Dune.
Yeah, exactly.
You bid troops, but you lose the troops you bid, whether or not you win.
Same thing, right? So, and then if there's a tie, if you both lose everything and you lose all the bosses that are there, right? No matter what, at the end of that election, there's either going to be 0 bosses or 1 boss left in the spot with all the immigrant cubes. And that's it. And someone will score the 1 victory point for that spot.
I could just hear that I overheard that Emily apparently kept arresting the Italians.
Right, so I'm getting to that. Here comes the good parts. So you finish all the elections, everyone gets their points and whatever, or maybe bonus, favors or cubes, whatever. Then you see, well, who's still on the board with a boss, right? So let's say I still have 3 districts. In those districts, there's 2 English people and an Italian person. Does anyone have more than 2 English people? No. I am the king of the English people. Boom, I get 3 English favors, right? And you do, so the one person is going to be the boss, basically, of each of the, right? I could be the boss of the English people and of the Germans. It's possible, right? Because it's how many total immigrant cubes are in the districts that you won elections for, right? You'll get the support of them and get favors from them. There could even be a tie. If there's a tie, let's say I have 2 Germans total and you have 2 Germans total, we both get 3 German favors. No one else does.
Nah.
All right? And now you've got a fistful of favors. So the next election gets crazy go nuts. Because I could have like 1 boss in a district, and as long as that district has a German cube, I have like 3 German favors. I could put my fist out, and that could be like 3 bosses worth. You don't know, right? So suddenly, putting a boss down in a place that has a cube that matches the color of the favors you have is really, really strong. Putting it in a place where it doesn't have that cube of the favors that you have is really, really weak, right? Now, whoever wins the most elections, and there's a bunch of tiebreakers, is the mayor. The mayor gets 3 victory points. Pretty good. But the mayor doesn't get any special powers whatsoever. The mayor assigns these 3 special powers to the other players, 4 special powers to the other players. The special powers are all ridiculously strong, and the mayor is very sad that he does not have one of these powers. The mayor also goes first, which sucks. You want to go last, so you can see where other people have put their shit. And then counter. If you have to go first, you're basically just getting fucked as the mayor. The only good thing about being mayor is 3 victory points. Everything else sucks ass.
It's kind of like being the king of Tokyo.
Right. So the 4 powers are and you use your power every single turn right before you put your guys out. Right. So the first power is chief of police. You pick an immigrant on the board and you lock him in jail. Basically, remove him from the board. So but you can't completely empty a space of its last cube. Right? So you might want to, if there's a spot you're trying to fight for, and there's a German cube and an Italian cube, and you have a lot of German favors, remove that Italian cube so no one who's fighting over it with you can use their Italian favors on it, right? A second power is to move a cube. Similar to the police, you can't remove the last cube from a space, but you can move a cube. So if someone drops, an Italian cube in the board somewhere else and you have Italian favors, just move that cube on over into your space. Or someone drops a cube into a space you're fighting for, hoping that they'll be able to use their favors. Just move it on out into some other space. It doesn't matter. All right? It's like, oh, take that. Or maybe there's a spot you're guaranteed to win, move a bunch of cubes into it. So now maybe you can win the favors of more immigrants at the end of the year, right? During the election, because you're going to win that space no matter what. The other 2 powers are, let me try to remember. Why am I not remembering right now?
Because you played the game once.
That's probably why, yeah.
During the middle of a long
I remember.
party.
One of the powers is at the beginning of your turn, you just get a favor of any color you want. So basically you're going to get 4 favors because there's 4 years. So basically the power is 4 favors any color you want. Pretty strong. And the final power is the lockup. So what the lockup does is before you place guys out and take your turn, you have these 2 silver tokens. So you can only use it twice during the whole year, right? So 2 years of the term you can use it. And when you put a silver token on a space, that space is locked in until the end of the election. So you have 1 guy on a space with some immigrants, just put the silver token on it. No one can put any immigrants there, remove immigrants from there. It's you can't touch it no matter what.
Basically sticking a king there.
Yeah, so you have 2 kings you can put out so twice during this whole term, right? So you're gonna basically win no matter what, 2 spaces, unless you're really dumb. So those are the 4 powers. So that's why the mayor gets fucked. And then that's pretty much the whole game. Is you just do 3 more terms like that, right? And at the end, who has the most victory points? I won by a hair because of one more mechanic I didn't mention, and it's the best mechanic, the slander. At the beginning of the game, you get 3 slander tokens, right? And you can use these slander tokens to remove bosses from the board. In order to remove a boss from the board, you have to spend one of your 3 slander tokens. You can only use 1 per term starting in the second term. So at most, you can use all 3 of them, right? And you can't use more than 1 per election, and you can't use any in the first election. You spend a slander token, and you have to spend a favor of an immigrant color. That immigrant is in the space you're trying to slander. You also have to have a boss in that space, which is really hard to set up the slander, right? It's like this really difficult thing to make happen. But let's say I'm in a space with an Italian immigrant and you're in the space also with a boss. I can remove your boss by spending a slander token and an Italian favor, right? Because basically I slander you amongst the Italians, right? And then your boss gets kicked out of that district. Really strong.
I'm already just married to the idea of a game that has a slander phase.
I know, right? Then the slander is after you put your guys out also. So like you can put a boss and then slander the space you just put a boss on.
Ha!
Then you can spread the slander to an adjacent space, but that's even harder to set up because that adjacent space would also have to have that same color of immigrant, Italian immigrants, and it would also have to be against the same opponent. So that means you, the person I'm attacking, would have to have bosses that are adjacent in 2 adjacent spaces, and they would have to be the same color of immigrant in both of those spaces, and I would have to have a boss in one of those spaces, and I would have to use a slander token, spend 1 favor for the first space, and 2 more favors for the second space. So a total of 3 favors, a slander token, it's this incredibly difficult thing to happen to do the double slander. But when it happens, you freaking
Double slander.
You remove 2
All the
of your
way.
opponent's bosses from the board, 1 in each space, which is really strong if they only had 1 boss in each, right? You basically just canceled one of their turns. Really nasty.
Nah.
But if you don't use your slander tokens at all, every slander token at the end of the game is worth 1 victory point, which is big.
So you just didn't use yours?
I only used 1, and at the end of the game, I was losing by 1 because I was mayor twice, which sucked ass.
Ha!
But being mayor twice, I got 6 points, right? So that wasn't bad. And then I had 2 slander tokens. 1, 2, and I win. Because everyone else pretty much used max slander. This game, I don't know how good it is in the long run because I've only played it once. I feel like it could go either way. It could be just awesome forever, or it could be that you sort of figure it out after a few plays and everyone sort of, falls into doing the same thing. But I do know that I really want to play it again, especially with Rim.
Yeah. Well, Scott and Emily both told me, and even Alex mentioned later, that game's kind of your kind of game, Rim.
Yeah, it is this super, this is a game, it's almost sort of like...
I like games that have area control, that have cubes in places on a board,
Yep.
that have a map, that have Colonel Blotto, that
The
have
game is
direct
actually
competition.
a lot like Diplomacy, only much smaller and faster, right? It even says, in the instructions, you can wheel and deal and bargain and do whatever, but, that you're not held to anything. But it suggests that it's basically super, super political. Listen, Rim, don't go here and I won't go there,
Yep.
sort of stuff.
And then we both do the exact opposite of what we
Right.
said, and then...
No one did any of that. Everyone who was playing was sort of yeah, I'm just going to be quiet and play, right?
Ah.
And not going to bother with that political nonsense. That's not going to work out.
Oops, so are there any rules around that?
Yeah, you're not held to anything. It just suggests that you...
Can I leave the table and have a discussion, then return?
The rule book, the rule book just suggests that you be political, basically.
Okay.
It doesn't... Actually,
wondered
there's no
because
enforcement of politics.
With Homesteaders, there was one note in the rules that I found fascinating. It said all turns other than the bidding process are simultaneous unless someone is a bitch and cares, in which case it goes in clockwise from starting player. So basically play unless someone wants to be that guy. And what was funny is that we start to play, and then Chris is teaching the game. He's like, all right, everybody can go. And I was like, I choose to wait until everyone takes the turn. And he goes, all right, the rules say that if someone says that, then we have to go in order like this. It had the rim rule. The
Did it
rim
matter?
Clause. No, it didn't fucking matter at all.
Oh, I mean, if the turn order mattered, I would.
Like, hell, it could matter. It could matter. What if there's only one of a building?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so it could matter. It just didn't happen to matter.
But if there's only one of a building, right? Maybe, and I'm later in the turn order, I'm better off just like simultaneously going to buy that building, right?
But the other guy might say, no, I was going to buy it.
I already bought it too late.
No, that's not how it works.
You had to say turn order before I bought it.
No, it's not how it works. If
Wah.
there is any race condition, then precedence goes clockwise.
So then we have to basically undo what we did, and then.
Well, you just don't do it. It's are you the Flash? Have you already taken it, spent your money, don't remember what you spent, and put it in front of you? I don't think you can move that quickly.
Bam. I mean, if the simultaneous turns, I'm just at the beginning of the turning, like bam, take the building. Yoink, yoink. But yeah, it was straight. Tammany Hall is strange, and you read the rules, and it's like all this stuff. But then when you actually play, most turns just put two guys, right? And it's so simple, but all this stuff came out of it, and it's interesting. Like El Grande, you're putting caballeros on the board, right? And it's similar, but in El Grande, each space has a predetermined value, right? In Tammany Hall, some of the spaces have a predetermined increased value, but most of the spaces are just worth a point. But you also put the immigrants out, which increases the value of the spaces, right? So that you can actually modify the values of the spaces that you're fighting over while you're fighting over them.
You know what other game did that, actually? Remember Tikal? In Tikal, you go into the jungle and you dig up the pyramids.
Right.
So you can, if whoever has the most guys in a spot wins those points when there's a scoring round. But anyone who's in the space can spend point or spend money or spend actions to dig and make the space more valuable. You can make a space more valuable independent of controlling that space.
Mm-hmm. But you can also make it less valuable.
Yeah.
On top of that, when you modify the immigrants, not only are you changing the value of winning that space because there's more immigrants there, but you are also making it easier or harder for different players to capture that space because the immigrants that they have favors with may or may not be present in that space. When I just took Germans and I went all in Germans the whole game. And basically no one could contest me in a German space, really, unless they got some other immigrant in there, which sometimes they were able to do because I was the mayor and they had a special power, and they would move an immigrant in and move my German out, right? Stuff like that. But I just stuck with one the whole time. I think a couple times Emily had favors of two different immigrants and a ton of favors. So many favors made it really hard to beat her in any kind of election if those immigrants were there, especially if both kinds were there, right? You end up just bidding zero, and forcing them to, bid some amount and lose and waste some of their favors when they didn't need to, right?
All right.
But you could also be get into a little poison cup there, right? It's like, they know I'm going to bid zero because I can't possibly win. I'm not going to waste my favors on this, but I'll bid one because that way they'll probably bid zero, thinking they can save them and not waste them. Oh, we tied. Clear out everything.
In the end, this sounds almost like a more political, more interactive version of El Grande.
Yeah, it's super, but it's also really faster, simpler. Doesn't have the cards.
But El Grande is really fast and simple. You just haven't played it.
It doesn't have the
recently.
cards where you choose at the bottom. It doesn't have the bidding cards for the turn order and the number of caballeros.
Well, because they're not the same game. But
it's just flat. It's just two, or one and an immigrant. That's it.
Yep. Want to play more games, but these two games are pretty good.
Yeah, I definitely want to play it again. After I play it again, we'll see if I want to play it again.
I might pick up a copy of Homesteaders just because it's another game that's great to teach people these concepts, and it's so quick to teach and play for the kind of game that it is, that if I got someone to play Homesteaders first, they would have no trouble with Agricola and Caelus. It's a good stepping stone game. If I played it a few more times and it lives up, I might add it to my sort of short list of recommendations for people who are new into German-style gaming.
All right, well, Tammany Hall's $80 in Amazon, so not buying that.
Yeah, dude, that out-of-print La Chita that I bought was only $70.
I think I could just make a game similar to Tammany Hall really simply, right? And then not have to pay $80 for it.
So, like when we made that ghetto pirated copy of Liar's Dice on a piece of paper?
Exactly.
Yeah. This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geek Nights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.